How's it going, everybody? It's your friend Lee. I'm joined here with by
Your friend Jack.
yeah, and today we're going to be discussing something very well. Before we get started, can you guys stop with the death threats to you know, to our messages? I mean, that's seriously not cool. I mean, guys, it's not that deep.
It's just meant for fun, really. I mean, I didn't think that it was really that big of a deal, but I mean, I'm just trying to have fun. That's all I really want.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the entire point of this, guys. Like, seriously, the death threats, not cool, not cool. I mean, I've been there, believe me. I've sent him. We've all sent him, but come on,
Yeah, I've sent them to you,
yeah, as have I.
and Liam, I'll do it again. I'm probably gonna do it again at some point.
That's fine. I probably deserve it. But Jack, why don't you tell the good people of YouTube what we're going to be doing here today?
So today we're gonna be doing something very near and dear to my heart. I know, I'm sure your heart as well, Lee. We're gonna be listening to or we already listened to them, but ranking and talking about ranking and talking about each album by the rock band Rush, the Canadian prog trio Rush. I was very excited about it. I had a good time. It was a lot. There's 19 albums. That's a lot um, of music to listen to, but I still had a very good time doing it. I know that you said that you did as well. Do you have anything you want to
Uh,
say?
well, yeah, I actually had probably a better time than I even thought I would. I mean, I heard all these except for Clockwork Angels all the way through before. So, but not, I never dove this deep. I mean, I listened to independent. What was it been like 2 weeks? I've listened to a
Hmm.
Rush album around like 60 times,
Yeah.
roughly, which, I won't say too much about it because I don't want to spoil anything. But um, so I'd be curious to hear yours, and I kind of already know this, but my history with the band is, being like younger, um, and getting into like, I guess more classic rock, hard rock stuff. I heard about moving pictures, and I had my dad download it on my phone, and then later on, I listened to 2112, and then when I got older, I started listening to them more, and then probably within the last couple years, I kind of revisited them more. So I have a pretty deep history with them. Always been a since I heard Moving Pictures, I've been a fan.
Hmm. Yeah, they were my favorite album, I mean favorite band for a long time. There was a lot of albums I had not heard all the way through before this. I think there was like 6 or 7 albums that I had not heard all the way through. There's a few albums I hadn't heard any single song off of before doing this. There's only like 2 or 3 of those, but yeah, they were my favorite band for a long time. Still definitely up there as one of my favorite bands. And it was about time that I, sit my ass down and listen to their entire discogs. And I can say I did it, and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah. So we're not including any of the live albums, although I'll say if you like Rush, you're definitely missing out by not checking out at
Hmm.
least three of them that come to mind, which would be the first two, and Rush and Rio is
Russian
also
Rio,
pretty awesome.
Russian Rio is
And
insane, dude.
I mean, all of them are good as hell. I mean, in my
Hmm.
opinion,
Yeah.
we didn't do the EP they did with the cover songs, so
Was
I
that
don't think
feedback? We didn't do feedback.
yeah, I don't think we have anything against EPs or covers albums, but they just have to kind of be essential to
Right.
what's like the consensus. Because we did an EP last time, right, with the Fame Monster.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that
So
most people consider that an album.
yeah, so we didn't do feedback. So who do you want to start it off?
I think I started it last time, so you can go ahead and start it off.
Okay, so here we go. Number 19. I have from I want to say I think it's 2003. I got Vapor Trails,
Hmm.
and you know what? I'll give it a 6 out of 10. I think it's above average because it is Rush, and they will always be really good, pretty much because of
Hmm.
their Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart, and Geddy Lee. So that's
Right.
the one of the plus things about this album. And this is kind of, I'll try and keep myself brief on these lower ones. They almost kind of have like an alt rock sound almost on this album, I would say. And it's right after they kind of Neil Peart had retired because he had a pretty big tragedies happen in years, coming up to this, and then he went on a motorcycle trip across the country and started writing lyrics, and then this album happened. And I still think there's strong moments on it. One Little Victory is really solid opener, solid drum part. Um, let's see, Secret Touch I think is pretty solid, and I really like Earthshine a lot. So the reason why I think this album is their worst is because the production on it is abysmal. I mean,
Hmm.
who I mean, who would have thought you could make Neil Peart's drums sound bad? But they did. And
Hmm.
this is so bad that they remixed it. And I only listened to the remixed album and it sounded still horrible. So I can only imagine what it sounded like in 2003. It's just so loud. And I don't, if I think if the production was better, I don't know if it would be my least favorite, but you can't hear anything that's going on. It's so muddy. The bass drums and guitars are all just occupying a similar frequency. The snare sounds bad. Um, there's also some of my least favorite Rush songs on here. Ceiling Unlimited, Ghost Rider. I'm not a huge on. Um, Sweet Miracle. I don't remember being that great. Uh, and also Getty's voice, not bad, but I think he was trying some weird falsetto things, which I don't think fit his voice or the band's sound all that great. So at a 6 out of 10, still think it's above average. I got Vapor Trails.
All right. Um, so uh there are a few things on my list that I know you're gonna not like. And like you said earlier, there's some things on your list that I'm not gonna like. I will say right now, having Vapor Trails at number 19 is not one of them. I don't care about that. Um, Shocker. Uh, for my number 19, honestly, for my number 19 through like 14, you can pretty much put them in any order, and I wouldn't really care that much. So at number 19, at a 4.5 out of 10, pretty bad, pretty low. Still not Long Road Out of Eden, but
No.
but but not great. I have Grace Under Pressure. Um, yeah, and I I know I
Wow.
thought I figured that that was gonna get it was gonna get you. Um, this was pretty much the start of, in my opinion, their worst era. They have a lot of different eras, Rush, and even more than I thought that they did going in. But this is the start of their like just where they just go insane on synths. It's like it was almost like if you took three kids, put them in like a candy store, but instead of candy, it was just synths, and they just went insane. And it's just like, all right, let's calm down here a little bit. There are some good songs on here. Distant Early Warning, I like that one a good bit. But I think coming off of things like Signals and Moving Pictures wasn't even that far behind. I mean, that far before Grace Under Pressure. It's just such a monumental fall off that they had. Um, Between the Wheels and The Enemy Within, they're they're pretty good as well. I just think that for me, this album, and again, pretty much albums, the next like five albums are going to sound, my review is going to sound pretty much the same. They all just pretty much sounded the same to me, with the exception of one I'll get to later. Um, they all just pretty much sounded the same to me, and this sound I do not like at all. It sounded just disgustingly 80s. Um, and I mean, also when you're comparing things like this album to some albums that we're going to get later, Moving Pictures, 2112, things like that. It's just like, what are you doing here? Like I just did not like this album at all. Well, that's not true. That's a little harsh. I liked it. It had some moments that were good, but overall just nowhere near their best work. Um, the production I don't remember really being that bad. I think the biggest thing for me was just very repetitive, and a lot of the songs just felt very uninspired as well. So that's my number 19, Grace Under Pressure.
Wow. All right, man. Jesus, this is gonna be a long video.
Yeah, I know. We'll try and keep it short until we get to the big boys.
So my number 18 is from 1996, Test for Echo. And I've also got this at a 6 out of 10. So I think it's above average. And I'll be honest with you, this one, uh, it could have been in last place very easily if Vapor Trails wasn't just so horribly produced. Because the production on this one is honestly pretty solid. And it starts off strong as hell. Test for Echo, that's a cool song. And Driven is awesome. And the live version of Driven, you should definitely check out if you haven't, because Getty goes nuts in the breakdown. He just lets it all out. Um, but yeah, the track listing is just, the first time through listening to this, I was like, all right, I'm digging this so far. It's definitely they're kind of back to being a heavy rock, hard rock band after several years of pretty much not being that at all, which I could see how some people would be like, okay, I like Test for Echo because of that. But some of the songs are just uh, kind of ridiculous. Like Half the World, James LaBrie should be singing that one, you know?
Yeah.
And speaking of which, Time and Motion sounds like Dream Theater, which
Hmm.
I like Dream Theater. I mean, I don't like them as much as Rush, but that keyboard intro sounds like Dream Theater. Um, Dog Years is probably their worst lyric, might be their worst song, in my opinion. That something about that chorus is just I don't know. And Virtuality is kind of like a cringe song about the internet, but damn it if that guitar riff doesn't kill. And
Hmm.
that I'll just bring it up a couple things now is you're never going to hear me complain. Kind of like how I said about Lady Gaga's voice. Alex Lifeson's guitar playing, never going to hear me say anything bad about that. He is like very well known, but at the same time, like super slept on as a guitarist. Like he is, and I'll get into this more on later albums, but he just always plays the right thing, no matter what the style or song is. He's always there doing what he needs to do. And one of the songs on here that I kind of looked around on Reddit to see what the Rush consensus of things are. And the consensus is basically that there's not a consensus, but people
Hmm.
seem not to like this album. People really hate Carve Away the Stone. That song, I think, is awesome. I love the hook. And, the Limbo, kind of a lame instrumental. Kind of sounds almost like they're trying to remake 2112 in spots, but it's a fine album. I have it above average at a 6 out of 10 because the first couple songs are like honestly really good, but it's just very inconsistent and forgettable. So that's my number 18.
All right. My number 18. So I have it a 5 out of 10. So half a point higher than Grace Under Pressure. I have Hold Your Fire. Um, again, same. I could you pretty much say the same thing about this album as you could for Grace Under Pressure. I think it's extremely glossy. I think it's overproduced at times. Um, just such 80s synth pop. It's just insane to the point where I'm just like, what the well, like again, what are we doing here? Like this is just crazy. Um, there are some good songs. Turn the Page, Time Stand Still. They're uh they're decent. Listening to the lyrics here, I think Neil Peart really just like is again just a huge downgrade lyrically for pretty much this entire era. To the point where I was like, up until a certain point, which I'll get to later, I was like, damn, Neil Peart really fell off at the end of his career, lyrically, at least, not drumming wise, but lyrically did. I think he brings it back towards the end, which I'll get to later. But Hold Your Fire, um, I was trying to think about and rank these albums based off how likely would am I to listen to them again. Hold Your Fire, Grace Under Pressure, and again up until the next like four, probably never really will listen to these again. There's a few songs on them that are like, all right, these aren't, terrible. But yeah, I just think it was I think it was pretty just way too overproduced, very, very glossy, and just didn't really have a lot of charm to it that you saw in some of the earlier ones and even some of the later ones. So 5 out of 10, Hold Your
Not even Tai Shan.
Fire. No,
All right. So my number, what are we on?
17.
17. And 17 and 16 could switch. And I've still got this at 6 out of 10. But if I'm being honest, this is a step up from the bottom two. I've got Snakes and Arrows, which is the one after Vapor Trails, is 2007. And production wise, can't even begin to explain how much of a step up it is in production. Like this album actually sounds pretty damn solid. And similar to my last album, Far Cry is a really good opener. I like that song a lot. Really cool guitar, bass, drumming. It's all solid as hell. And then Armor and Sword, I think, is probably like the gem I found through listening through these. That song, I love that. Anytime they later in their career they do those mellower, like almost mid-tempo songs, it almost always works well. And at this point, Getty, he's not screeching, which for some people might be a good thing. I like when he sings high, but he doesn't really do that anymore. He's more like harmonizing vocals, and I think it was wise because he sent. I honestly, for a aging rock vocalist, he sounded good throughout the whole discog. Um, this album just falls off because I mean, same thing with Vapor Trails. They should have just cut the songs. And they were working with a guy named Nick something or other, had a crazy last name, who was a Rush fan. And I think you could tell the guy making this was a fan of Rush because they do three instrumentals, but those three instrumentals, they're good, but they're not. They're probably the three worst instrumentals of their career. And just some of the stuff is just kind of boring and just repetitive. Um, it starts off really strong though. Like even like the larger bowl, which is kind of a weird song for them. I think it's catchy. I like it. And Spindrift is like pretty heavy, which is a good sound for the band, but it's average. I would, and I honestly disagree with one of your points. I think later in his career, I almost like Neil Peart as a lyricist more because he's singing less about like Lord of the Rings and more about like human nature and human things. And I think he is a really, 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 really slept on lyricist. Like he is such a good lyricist, I would say. And I not saying you said otherwise, but and
Mhm.
and I granted you haven't talked about any of these albums yet, but I think later in his career, even on my least favorite album, the lyrics were really solid and really made you feel something. And I think sometimes with Rush, you're not really paying attention to the lyrics. You're like, these guys are killing it, especially Getty and Neil. But yeah, pretty solid. 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 isn't horrible. It just means that might not put it on again, but it's enjoyable enough. Snakes and Arrows.
Right. All right. Number 17. For me, number it's 5.5 out of 10. So
Okay, you're
another
moving up.
half point up, another half point up, another half point up. I got Presto. This is one of the albums that I had not heard a single song off of before coming into this. And I mean, it's third to last, so it's not amazing. But I'll be honest, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Um, it's I think the best song on it, Show Don't Tell. I think Alex Lifeson does a really good job on this album. But I'll agree with you where I don't think there's an album where he does bad. I don't think there's an album where musically any of them do bad. Um, and I think Alex Lifeson is extremely slept on.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah. I think The Pass and Available Light are pretty good. They're also some pretty good highlights. Um, again, it's just kind of forgettable to me. This entire era, and I know that we're spanning, decades at this point, but like the era from, I guess, after Signals to, well, we'll get to that later. Uh, for the most part, pretty much all the same. There's some exceptions to that rule, but it's just forgettable. It kind of blends into everything else. If you took pretty much any song off of the last three albums that I just said, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you which album they're on because they all sound the same to me. And again, it's not a sound that I like very much. There are some high points, and again, their musicianship is pretty much going to save them ever from getting less than like a 4 out of 10 for me. It could be terrible everything else, but as long as it's them three playing, it's probably that's going to at least be like a saving grace. Um, but I think this album kind of showed me how underappreciated Alex Lifeson was, not just necessarily because like he's ripping crazy guitar solos or anything all the time, but just because what he does do is very, very. I just noticed it, and I was like, okay, and then that kind of made me think, oh well, he hasn't really had a bad album yet. And then I listened back to the previous albums as well, before Presto. And I was like, yeah, no, he's just kind of doing his thing in the background the entire time, and he comes to the forefront when he needs to, but he also is just, I don't know, I'm done glazing Alex Lifeson, I guess, uh,
You know we're not.
but yeah, yeah, that is true. Yeah.
There's
I don't
only
know. It was
three
just very,
guys we can glaze. Well, four, but
yeah, true. We'll get to him. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, it just was kind of forgettable, kind of just for me. Blended into the rest of the Rush album or the Rush sound of this time. So that's why I have number 17, 5.5 out of 10, Presto.
Yeah, so I haven't upset Jackie yet. I have a, I have a feeling this one might. I don't know. And
Ruffle feathers.
this one kind of disappointed me. I'm not gonna lie, because I have heard this album a good bit, and this time it just wasn't really doing it for me. I got Roll the Bones with a
Mm,
6 out of 10 at
mm.
my number 16. Now, this one is also it's still 6 out of 10, but this one is teetering on the brink of a 7. It's
It's a
teetering
better
there.
6 out of
It's a better 6 out of 10.
10.
So
Okay.
I'll say this, just like some of the other ones I mentioned before, it starts off strong as hell. Dreamline is a really good song, and Bravado is probably post 80s the best Rush song in my opinion. That song, like as their slow stuff, and I think it's because Getty kind of learned how to sing these songs a little better at this time, is so good. I love that song. That is one of my, if that would probably be in my top 15 favorite songs of theirs. I really like that one a lot. Um, I also like Ghost of a Chance a lot. And there's nothing on here that I dislike. It's just like, Where's My Thing is an okay instrumental. And I'll say this is their funkiest album. I don't know if you
Oh
noticed
yeah.
that, but
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah,
we'll get to that.
which,
We'll get
which
to that.
I love funk music. I don't know that I necessarily like Rush. I don't think they get in that groove as good as some other rock bands, like a Led Zeppelin, for example. And let's talk about the elephant in the room. The song "Roll the Bones" is honestly I don't dislike it. It's the chorus is great, and the rap part I I kind of like it. It kind of works. It's kind of cringe, but it kind of works. So yeah, Roll the Bones. I know a lot of people really like this one, and it see this as kind of a comeback to their what they want Rush to be, which is guitar based drums with a little synths. But
Mhm.
I definitely don't hear this as any sort of return to form. I think it's kind of what they were doing before, maybe a little more polished. So that's why I got to hear 6 out of 10.
Okay. I don't hate that. I don't hate that take. Um, but I'll get more into that later. Number 16. We're at number 16, right? For number 16 for me, I have Counterparts. With a 5.5 out of 10. So pretty close to Presto, but it's definitely closer to a 6 than to a 5. So it's really like a 5.8, 5.7.
Okay.
Um, the best song on this one for me is Nobody's Hero. I really like that song. You can kind of tell. So this came out in the 90s. I'm not sure exactly. I think it was
I think
91 or
90, 93 or 94.
Oh, okay, yeah. So the thing that the excuse me, that this album made me realize is they really are a product of their time. Rush was. This is a pretty heavier, grunge influenced kind of album. Um, there are other songs like "Stick It Out," "Cut to the Chase" that are pretty good. Um, obviously, it's not going to be like a, like a Nevermind or a Pearl Jam 10 in terms of grunge, but well, I heard this one and I kind of thought like the band that made me think or made me think of immediately was Stone Temple Pilots. Um, obviously, it does. If you were to put on this and say, "Is this Rush or Stone Temple Pilots?" I'd be like, "This is obviously Rush," but it was definitely like, okay, the synths are pretty much gone, as are, like you said, the Lord of the Ring lyrics and Neil Peart's not using a big ass chime behind his kid or anything like that. But but so I kind of like that sound more than the synth pop stuff of the 80s. That's why it's up at 16 and a little bit higher. Again, the tone and the pacing for me were pretty uneven throughout the album. The track listing wasn't amazing, but I think it still was a pretty good album for what they were trying to do. You can tell that they're trying to experiment with new sounds, which they never shied away from really ever in their career. But it still wasn't really anything to write home about. So kind of parts of number 16 I got.
All right. Now, if this one, if the last one didn't rustle Jack's feathers, I'm fairly positive this one might. I got at number 15, Clockwork Angels.
Mm,
But,
that does rustle my feathers, but go ahead.
but, but I'm bringing it to a 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Now, the reason why I never listened to this one all the way through is because straight up I did not like it. Because I think a lot of classic rock, prog, heart metal, whatever you want to call it, Rush, whenever they take a step in a heavier direction, people tend to exaggerate how good it really is. But listening to it this time through, I was very pleased with what I heard. And I think I could even put this one higher up in the future if I had a little more history with it compared to, because I'm not gonna lie, a lot of the other ones I've heard a lot and would like put on just to put on, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and this is interesting. Like they, to your point before, they never stop changing. Like this is their first time they did a tried and true concept album, which honestly, the concept is kind of cool. It's like a steam guy in a steampunk land, like going on adventures. Like,
Yeah.
okay, Neil, cool,
Why
I
not?
guess. But yeah, I mean, and this is the most they sounded like classic Rush, despite the past 3, 4 albums being back to more hard rock. They actually took like their instrumental prowess of like their early stuff and utilized it more here. And Caravan, I know we both like Caravan a lot.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I know that. That's a great opener. Um, the song Clockwork Angels is awesome. The Anarchist, they they're almost throwing it back. Like that riff is straight out of Moving Pictures. Like they really, and Alex's guitar playing on this album is ferocious. But this is probably the closest he's harkened back to that, whatever you want to call his classic sound, Halo effect. Really, there's not the end. There's some songs that if I was in the studio, I would have been like, guys, let's trim this down to 9 songs, and this is a 9 out of 10.
Hmm.
Uh, Headlong Flight is just so good, dude. That song,
Yeah.
oh my God, that song is awesome. And The Garden, I know it's been said before, but that is such a great ending song.
Hmm.
Um,
Last
I
song of
mean,
their career.
yeah, and it's great. It's amazing. Production is bad though, if I'm being honest. In my opinion, I think the production is pretty, not to the point of vapor trails, but at times not far behind. The mix is muddy. And Getty's, I don't know if you agree, there's definitely some pitch correction in those vocals.
Oh yeah. Oh,
But
there
at the same
definitely is.
but at the same time, he's still like on it. So on like Headlong Flight, I'm like, damn, Getty, I didn't know you had that in you still. Like,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, it's like I said, this one could go higher in the future, but right now I got it sitting at I got it 15 Clockwork Angels.
All right.
But I like it a good bit.
Um,
Everything here on up, I
yeah,
like a lot.
yeah. So number 15, we're at 6 out of 10. And I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe this is the first album that we'll both have talked about. First repeat album. I have Snakes and
Yeah,
Arrows.
that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it would have been a little more consistent, but hey, we have different music tastes. That's fine. We're still friends. I got Snakes and Arrows, 6 out of 10. To your point on it, I do like Armor and Sword. I said that was my favorite song. Far
Oh yeah,
Cry, Far Cry was a really good song as well. The intro or the beginning of the album was good. Where I kind of took off points is its length. I thought it was really repetitive. Certainly not repetitive to other albums. Maybe you can argue that it's repetitive with Clockwork Angels, but I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. But just repetitive in itself. Um, I think that is the main thing that makes it pretty hard to revisit. But like I was saying earlier, this album made me kind of restored my hope in Neil Peart's lyrics. I liked his lyricism a lot on this album and in Clockwork Angels. But I'll get to that later. I think the production was good. Like you said, there was a fan working on it with him, so that kind of was like that kind of led to it being more like Rush. I don't even know how to say it, but like more
yeah.
like Rush heavy. I guess I don't even know if that's what I'm trying to say, but yeah, it wasn't that certainly was not the best idea in the world to do that, but it certainly is a step up. I think number 15 and number 14 are so this and then the next one are pretty good, and then from there on there's a noticeable jump in my rank. But for right now, Snakes and Arrows, definitely kind of a little bit going back up as their career was ending. But yeah, that's what I got number 15,
So my number, what am I on?
14.
14. I've got at a 7 out of 10. I actually have Presto, which is kind of, first of all, show. I agree with you on Show Don't Tell is really the bass and everything on that is just awesome. And this was kind of supposed to be like that, their way of being like, we're done with the synths. You know, Getty had his fun,
Hmm.
but we're back to being a rock and power trio. But I really feel like this is part of the synth era. Like it feels like one of those albums. It's very lightweight and spacious, which I mean I like that. Um, I think the Chain Lightning is solid as well as really most of this album. I think it's just not like the most memorable, but all the songs I think are in their own right solid. Uh, the highlights are Available Light is a really good ballad to end the album. Red Tide is solid. But the highlight is The Pass, which is a song like Neil Peart wrote about like someone he knew when he was younger who was like talking about committing suicide and they were like kids. And
Hmm.
it's a really good, I really like that song. And from what I understand, the band is really big fans of that song too. That's awesome. I would say like not super well known, but people should check that one out. That's like one of the songs from this like weird in between era that I think is probably the highlight. Um, I think I think this is their most forgotten album because I think the identity of it is a bit weird. It's not quite hard rock. It's not quite the synth stuff, but it's just really good songs. And I have no problem. I have no problem. Someone's like, you got a car full of CDs. You got Presto as a CD. Throw that sucker
Throw
in.
it
Let's
on.
listen to some Rush, man. It's a good
Yeah,
album.
yeah,
7 out of 10, solid as hell.
awesome. All right, we're at 14. So
Yeah,
number 14, I have Test for Echo, at a 6 out of 10.
same as mine.
Um, yeah. So again, I think this is kind of a mixed bag. Songs like "Driven" are really, really good. "Resist" is a good song as well. But it's still just kind of holding on to like that sound that I just do not like really at all. The songwriting is super inconsistent for me. There's some like I said, pretty mixed bag, a pretty big lack of cohesion. I think that musically, this album is really, really good though. Uh, again, as every Rush album is. So it's kind of like, yeah, bring it up, but also like if everything is is musically good, then it almost doesn't even matter. Um, but again, it was just super boring. I'm kind of forgetting even stuff to talk about it, just because I was just like, again, it's one of those albums where I'm just like, I feel like you could throw it on and or like hit shuffle play between this uh what Grace Under Pressure, Hold Your Fire, everything that I've talked about other than Snakes and Arrows, and I wouldn't even be able to know which song is on which. And it just was not a sound that I was was a fan of. Getting through these albums was kind of a chore. Um, but the next one is the last of the kind of like not bad ones, but ones that I was kind of bored with, and then it gets some pretty good stuff, in my opinion. So yeah, was Test for Echo 6 out of 10. Not really much else to say.
Yeah, I agree. That one is very forgettable.
Yeah.
Um, so let's see here. Number 13. I got it as 7 out of 10, which means I think it's good. It's good. And I from 1975, I've got Caress of Steel.
Mm.
Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. A lot of people will say this is their worst,
Yeah, that is true.
which I totally don't agree with. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But from this run, it's the worst very easily, in my opinion. And it here's the thing, like the Bastille Day is awesome, okay? And it's a very interesting and enjoyable album to listen to, but I just don't think the songs are really there. And honestly, I don't think the performances are as good as on the prior album, to be honest. The production is not as good either. And I think I'm Going Bald is one of their worst songs, I would say. Not bad. It's just kind of like
It's weird.
run of the
It's
mill.
weird.
It's run of the mill.
Weird.
And
Yeah.
Lakeside Park, it's honestly that one is not one of my favorites either. Now, the last two songs, The Necromancer and Fountain of Lament, is when they first start like flirting. Well, I guess not the first time, but in a way, the first time they start going in this prog direction and doing these multi-part songs. And both those songs have really good parts, specifically The Necromancer, that middle section is really solid. But the end is literally just Sweet Jane by the Velvet Underground. I hear that part and I'm like thinking that he's about to start going Sweet Jane. Like
Mm.
it's just it is spot on that song. And I don't think Rush were influenced by the Velvet Underground. Could be wrong, but and then Fountain of the Lament has No One at the Bridge. That part is awesome, and the part
Hmm.
after that is really good too. But it's just so the structure is so jumbled, but I still enjoy listening to it and respect what they were doing a lot. And I would say definitely people should check this one out. It's just, I don't think it's up to the quality of the other ones from this era.
Mm.
So that's why it's my number 13. And Jack, I
Okay.
know that it's not your number 13. So let's hear what you
No, it
got.
is not my number 13. My number 13 is Vapor Trails, a 6.5 out of 10. Yeah, no, it didn't get too far up there. Don't worry. Um, I I do agree with you that the production was just like not good at all. But I think that this is also kind of where I think I saw Neil's lyrics being like, okay, these are good. Like we're getting back to like good stuff again. It's different for sure. He's not
I
talking
agree.
about
I thought the lyrics were the best part of the album.
yeah, he's not talking about a funeral dirge, but well, he might have been talking about a funeral. He's not
Yeah.
uh
Well, yeah.
yeah. I think the story of this album is really good. like the real life story of this album is a really, really good one. Neil, like you said, retired and then went on a cross country motorcycle trip and talked about or wrote songs and lyrics about his wife and his daughter who both passed away. Which man, that must have been terrible,
Oh,
dude. That must have
it's
sucked.
crazy he even came back at all.
I know. Yeah, yeah. Shout out to him for coming back. Um, but yeah, if the production was better, this easily would be a top 10 album, probably even top five for me, just because I'm a sucker
Whoa.
for those good old stories. And actually, probably not a top five, but
Hey man, do your
definitely
thing.
no, yeah, yeah, not a top five. That sorry, I got a little excited. But the production is real bad. Uh, there are some really good good performances here. One Little Victory is an absolute that's an absolute banger. Um, but like to your point, the production just brings it down so much that I couldn't really justify putting it higher than 13, even though I wanted to, but I couldn't do it. So, but this is a noticeable jump up from 14 from Test for Echo, which is so this is Vapor Trails number 13, 6.5 out of 10. There you go.
All right, my number 12. I've got the debut Rush album called Rush. I don't
Wow.
like I feel like
I'm
some people
surprised by
would
that.
say this is controversial, but it's really
I'm just
kind of like
surprised. I'm just surprised because I thought you would have had it a lot.
yeah, no, I know what you mean because like this is kind of like totally my wheelhouse, and I got it at an 8 out
Mhm.
of 10. So I think it's very good,
Yeah.
especially for a debut. And it's the only one with John Rutsey, and I'm not. I mean, it's not his fault. It's just that they're young and they're just playing. It's very much like Led Zeppelin influence. It sounds like honestly,
Yeah.
I would say it kind of almost has a lot with another album that came out in 1974 with the first Kiss album. If we're being honest, it's
Yeah,
kind
it
of not
does.
that far off from that. I think
Yeah.
it's probably a little bit better, but that's kind of what they're going for. Like, I don't think it's as good as like an Aerosmith album from this period, though,
No,
or
no.
someone like that. Um, and they're just having a good time. I mean, it's I think objectively the worst lyrics they ever wrote, sure, but I mean, if you like hard rock more than prog, this might be your number one. Like, I get it. To me, it's just not. You don't have Neil Peart, you don't have his lyrics or his drumming, which I think are two super big highlights of the band. And some of the songs are like before and after. It's a fine song. Um, Take a Friend, good riff. Alex Lifeson kills it on this album. Very much sounds like almost like a Michael Schenker, Tony Iommi type of guitar player at this point, which I think he moved away from that, and there's nothing wrong with that style. But what you're doing is awesome. Great riff. Finding My Way is awesome, and Working Man is obviously a classic. I mean, that's probably one of their most popular songs, and I think for a debut, it's really good. But yeah, I mean, it's an 8 out of 10. I think it's very good. It's just not what I want from the fellows. Hold on, Jack. We're losing you.
Oh yeah. Hello. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Um, cool. All right. So number 12.
Yeah.
My number 12. So this is gonna be the first one where Liam's mad. Liam's not gonna like this one. I'm fairly confident. But at a
Okay.
six, but I will say this is where like we're getting to good, I think, now. Versus 13 was like, now we're like good. Number 12, 6.5 out of 10. So same ranking as Vapor Trails, but it is definitely better. Now I'm thinking about it, I might want to move Vapor Trails down to a 6 out of 10. But anyway, number 12, Permanent Waves. Um, bit of a hot take. Bit of a hot take, I know. I think to how you felt about Roll the Bones, I just listened to it and I was like, eh, I'm just not feeling it, you know? Obviously, Spirit of Radio. I mean, come on. What are we gonna do here? We're gonna say that that's not a banger. Come on. Free Will. Come on. What are we gonna say here? We're gonna say that that's not a banger. Come on. But I think that there's a lot of songs on here that I never really took a shining to. Natural Science. I was never really that crazy about Natural Science.
Wow, I'm shocked by
No,
that.
I know. I was never really that crazy about Jacob's Ladder. I like how on the live version he goes, Jacob's Ladder. I like that. But I don't know. I think that it just it's also in like in their discography just like in a bad spot because it was in between what Moving Pictures and and what came out before it?
Hemispheres,
Hemispheres, yeah.
hemispheres. Yeah,
Which you can argue that that's number one and number two, like albums, Rush albums ever. So that did not do it any favors at all. I know that it shouldn't be considered when you're ranking these as individual albums, but I mean when you're listening to them chronologically, it's kind of like,
oh yeah.
all right, yeah, come on. Um, I think that it, like I said, is definitely a step up, but it just was a little bit it was very mixed bag and it was a little too short for me. I kind of would have preferred one or two more bangers from this era. But I kind of feel like this is also one of those things where if I listen to it in 2 or 3 weeks, it could be up there. It could be top, 6 or 7 albums for me. But just right now, I'm not really feeling it. So I have a number 12, 6.5 out of 10.
I'm shocked, but I'm not upset. I'm actually really happy because of one that I haven't heard yet. But
Oh, all right.
um, yeah, that is crazy, and I disagree with you heavily. But hey, I mean, I like the controversy, man. I'm all for
Yeah,
that.
man. Fire right here.
Um, oh man, wow, that took me by surprise. So my number
Yeah.
11, which is it might be a little weird to put it this high, is Counterparts with an 8 out of 10.
Mm,
And I think as soon as it starts with animate and you hear that opening drum, you're like, okay, there you're coming back to being like a straight up rock band. And I
yeah.
don't a lot of people are like, this is their return to form, which I don't agree with because it does not really sound like anything from their earlier period. But it's definitely heavier than like Stick It Out might be the heaviest song they ever did. And yeah, it definitely, you can tell they were aware of Alice in Chains and all that stuff. And they bring in Kevin Shirley engineering, who does like he's kind of the king of just like raw rock out. He does Black Crows, Maiden, Joe Bonamassa, like, and this is probably one of the first notable albums he did. So it's not surprising that it went that way. And I just like the track listing a lot, man. Cut to the Chase is awesome, and I know we haven't stopped talking about him, but that Alex Lifeson guitar solo is nuts.
Hmm.
Like, where did that come from? Like, he is very evolved as a player at this point. I agree with you. Nobody's Hero. It's an amazing song. Maybe his best lyrics ever.
Hmm.
It's about I don't know what the second verse is about, but he had like a roommate who had like he was a gay man who had AIDS, and he wrote that about like him and like how he used to go over to his house and how yeah. I mean, the lyrics are self-explanatory, but I think it was just like a really cool, insightful thing from Neil. Which earlier on, there's not much insight from Neil at all. It's more like he's writing fantasy, which
Hmm.
is good. And similarly, Cold Fire, which starts off sounding like a run-of-the-mill hard rock song, immediately turns into like this melancholy love song, and it's really interesting to hear his take on that from a much more a man who at this point was probably in his 40s, I would imagine.
Hmm.
Him writing a love song this late in his career was very interesting to hear. Um, Between Sun and Moon, Alien Shore, these are all like really good songs, I think. And the biggest problem is some of it is forgettable. Um, but I'd also Leave That Thing Alone is an awesome instrumental. Best instrumental they did in a while.
Hmm.
So I like this album a lot. I think it's a great one to just throw on. If someone was only familiar with their early stuff, I'd point them. I'd be like, check this one out. You might like this one. I think it's really good. So that's my number 11. I got Counterparts 8 out of 10.
Cool. All right. So my number 11, this might not make sense given what I said for the like number 19 through like 13 or whatever, but I got Power Windows. Um, I really like this album, kind of shockingly. I think like it was such an 80s sound, which I said I didn't like on like Grace Under Pressure, Hold Your Fire and stuff, but it was so like disgustingly in your face that it almost came back around. And I was almost like, I mean, I don't hate it. Like it's like if you're like they just were like, we're gonna do nothing but synths and those little like hexagon drums that are electric.
The bubble hole
And
drums.
yeah, yeah. And it's just they owned it. They were up in front, and I kind of liked it. Songs like The Big Money, like there was so much. I could not imagine recording that song because there's
Oh
so
yeah.
much different, like just a random like synth just going like just like and that's like the only thing that it's doing. Um, Same with Marathon. I think Marathon was a really good song. Um, so I gave it a 6.5 out of 10, but it is I did like it. Definitely my favorite of like the mid to late 80s sound, like that era. Definitely my favorite. Um, Again, the synths are just in your face. There's no escaping them. But that doesn't mean that their musicianship is lost. Like if you know what you're listening for with the electric drums, you can definitely be like, oh, this is Neil Peart doing Neil Peart things. And same thing with Alex Lifeson, obviously. The bass is still good, but it definitely takes a back seat to the synths to kind of like substitute that a little bit, but it's still good. Um, but yeah, no, I liked it. Obviously, I think that they just had much better albums later on. Uh, so that's why it's only 11, but just outside of the top 10. But kind of to your point, what you said about counterparts, if there was somebody who only knew their early stuff and they were like wanting something new, I would probably throw on Power Windows and say, give it a shot. Even if you don't necessarily like the 80s. Well, if you really hate the 80s sound, don't listen to it. But like if you're kind of open to it, yeah, give it a shot. So I didn't number 11, 6.5 out of 10. I have
Wow.
a lot of 6.5 out of 10s, but it was good. I liked it.
Yeah. So my number 10, and this is probably one of my more controversial ones because this one is not very beloved by many. But I got Hold Your Fire at a 8 out of 10.
Mm,
Now, to me, I think this is 1987. They're way into the 80s, and they're pumping out albums. Like they were very prolific in the 80s.
yeah, they were.
And this to me is their 12th album. And this to me is just kind of like Rush. They're like, we're Rush. We're just going to put out an album with good songs. And it is very 80s. I think um, maybe not as 80s and synth heavy as something like Power Windows, but this is almost their mellowest album. And I kind of like that from them that they were not afraid to just like, at this point, they're not even close to the same band they were. They're just making this like new wave, I guess synth pop rock. It's still rock, but um, I like pretty much every song on this album. I think Force 10 is an awesome opener with the slept on Geddy Lee bass riff. And Time Stands Still, always loved that song with it. Probably one of the only guest appearances on a Rush album from Amy Mann on backing
Hmm.
vocals. And also has the best music video of all time. Watch it if you
Yeah,
haven't, you'll see what I mean.
that is true.
And then you have a bunch of these other songs on here that are just, um, pretty damn solid. Like Open Secrets, I like a lot. Um, Second Nature is a really good mellow synth. That song is like synth pop and very mellow, but the hooks and the lyrics are good. I like the lyrics on pretty much all their albums. Um, and Prime Mover, I think, is a good example of how in their synth era they still managed to be really good musicians. Like Getty's bass is playing the hook at the beginning, and then later on it comes back with guitars, and very impressive to do that. Mission is good. Lock and Key is pretty solid. That one's probably like one of their cheesiest songs though. And you know what? Even Tai Shan is probably their most shit on song, but I can't. It's kind of a vibe, man. I like that song. The only one I'm
Mhm.
not like crazy about is the last song, High Water, is very forgettable, but I just think it's considering how late into their career they are. And I think the quality of writing and the quality of innovation is still there. And I like it a lot. It's an 8 out of 10. Hold your fire.
All right. So number 10, top 10. I have the debut. Now we're at a 7 out of 10. Uh, so um, yeah, kind of like what you said. This is definitely, in my opinion, I would say this is probably the least Rush album. Um, the by far the worst part, in my opinion, are the lyrics. My dad always made that joke all the time. Who's a better Neil Peart through the shifting shafts of shining, weave the fabric of their dreams. John Rutsey, I'm a working man. Yeah, I guess that's what I am. Who's a better lyricist? Uh, you can tell that there's a lot of really early influences. I mean, they were kids. They were kids playing what they wanted and what they thought was going to make them famous. So I get it. Finding My Way, In the Mood are really good songs. Um, In the End is a really, really good song. I
That's
like
not
that
on
one.
this album.
In the Oh shit, my bad, my bad. No, I'm thinking. All right, well, we'll get to that. Sorry. Um, but yeah, like you said, a lot of Led Zeppelin influences, a lot of Kiss influences. Um, and I don't necessarily like that for Rush because I mean I love those bands, don't get me wrong, but I think that like you're not going to compete with the bands of the 70s that were doing this sound so much better, like Aerosmith, Kiss especially. They really needed to find their own niche, and of course they would do that. But for what it is, it's really not a bad album. There's, in my opinion, nine better, but there's also eight worse. So pretty much in the middle of the pack. 7 out of 10. The debut.
Yeah, and I want to add to that is like Getty's bass playing on the album is still a top tier. And
Yeah.
honestly, his vocals, I'll be honest with you, dude. I kind for a couple albums, I understand, and I haven't talked about them yet. Why people don't like Geddy Lee's vocals, but I really feel like he is an underappreciated vocalist. Like he sounds really good on that first album.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
yet, is he ever going to compete with like a Robert Plant, a Bon Scott, a Steven Tyler? Pro- Probably not. But I also think if he would have kept up with that style of music, number one, they wouldn't be that famous. Number two, he
Yeah.
probably would have been, as a vocalist, people would have been probably more impressed by his vocals. Because I think the problem with him is he doesn't really, the melodies, they have more complicated music, and the melodies don't lend them to vocal prowess as well. But I mean, I like his, I don't know if you agree, but I like him as a singer a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But I do understand why people don't.
Right, right. So moving on to my number nine, which Jack, this one, you hit me with a atomic bomb. I'm not gonna lie when you said this one.
Yeah, I
So
knew. Yeah, I knew. Yeah.
uh, everything from here on out, my top nine are all I recommend heavily.
Hmm.
And this one was originally slotted higher and much higher. And then I kind of was like, okay, I think I like eight more than this. And then 9 out of 10, I've got Grace Under Pressure. And to me, this is a continuation of Signals, except I would argue that this album is rocks a little harder than Signals, in my opinion. I think the guitar, I think the synths are there, and they're there a lot, but there's definitely guitar on this album. And honestly, man, there's just not a song I dislike on here. Distant Early Warning, to your point, is a solid opener. After Image is a really good mid tempo one. I Red Sector A is awesome. That song is about Getty's parents being in the Holocaust, which is crazy that that happened. First of all, and it's crazy it's very interesting for him to write a song from like their perspective on that. The middle of the album, is not as good as the beginning and the end, but Kid Gloves, I love that song. Just catchy as like pop rock, and Red Lenses, funky, one of their funkier songs, and Between the Wheels is awesome. Um, but this album is literally just Rush, just sounding so much like the Police. They sound so much like the Police. They did it on some other albums too, but this one, like, they really, like, even the synth sounds are the same ones that the Police were using. And I know they liked
Yeah.
them, but yeah, they sound like the Police. And I'll talk about this now, but Alex's guitar playing in this period, I would argue, is maybe his most impressive work because of what he was able to do with these synths taking such a huge turn. He became way more textural. His leads were super thought out and melodic. The chords he was playing were very interesting. The tones were very interesting. Um, so I just want to shout that out. I mean, obviously, Geddy is still killing it on bass. Neil is still killing it on drums. I'm going to talk about that more later on, but I really like Grace Under Pressure. My mind is blown how you like some of the other ones more than this, but that's just, especially because this, to me, compared to Windows and Hold Your Fire, is not the most criminal offense of the 80s-ness.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, power. Yeah, again, Power Windows I thought was more 80s, but it was I don't know what that is, and I fully I'm like, yeah, this doesn't make sense, but I don't know what it's called where it's like if it's so bad it's good. It's almost
yeah,
like that where it's like it comes back around where it's like I guess reverse bell curve where it's
yeah,
like okay, well I don't hate it now. I don't know why.
yeah. No, I know what you mean, and yeah, I just think that it's like from a songwriting standpoint, I Grace Under Pressure, I think, is just really solid, and I think people have mixed feelings about it. I see some people put it really high, some people put it really low, like you. And it's a very icy, cold sounding album. The production is almost thin, almost, but at points they sound very menacing with these keys and these uh, really affected guitars. And Getty's voice still holding up solid as hell. Um, and yeah, this one, I mean, I like this one so much that this honestly fell off for me. This at
Mm.
points would be in my top five. So yeah,
All
Grace Under
right.
Pressure, my number nine.
My number nine, and I wonder how you'll feel about this, but my number nine is a 7 out of 10. I got a lot of 7 out of 10, so just be ready for that. My number nine, 7 out of 10, Signals. Um, I think originally when I first heard this album when I was younger, I really didn't like it at all. Like this probably would have been bottom five, six, or seven for me. But then I don't know, you just hear Digital Man, and you're like, oh, you're like this song, ooh. I never really was too crazy about subdivisions, to be honest. I know that that's like the big, huge hit off this album, and I think it's a good message. It's a good theme
It's the
song,
first
but I just
emo
never really.
song ever made.
It is the first emo song, yeah, but I was just never really crazy about it. Um, this is the first album which is like super synth heavy. Obviously, it would get worse, more synth heavy as the discography went on, but this was the first one to really kind of let the synths shine. And it's not really too bad. Again, like you hear the Analog Kid, you hear Digital Man, you're like, these are good songs. These are so like Rush songs. Very, very, very technically proficient. The musicianship was. I really like the earlier sound a lot, and this is just such a departure from that's why it kind of fell so far. But it really is not a bad album. I think to your point, from here on out is pretty much every album I would recommend to somebody. Um, so yeah, I got 7 out of 10. Signals number nine.
Well, I
That's
mean,
all I gotta say.
considering they have 19 albums, I mean, seven, and saying that is pretty damn good is,
Yeah, right.
I mean, you can't be mad at that. Or wait, are we on number seven or number eight?
Number eight. So
Okay,
you say you're number eight.
okay. So my number eight is this one might ruffle some feathers, but I gotta preface this by saying everything here on out, we're at is from a consecutive run. Actually, no, except for one that I think is pretty much flawless for the most part. And I got And then my number 8, I've got Farewell to Kings, which
Mhm.
I like a lot. And it's this to me is their first actual like I don't know if I think Rush are really like fully a prog band. I think they lean towards there a lot, especially earlier. But this one I think is the first one where I'm like, this is progressive rock. Like tons of classical guitar. This is their first one with synths, I believe. They're using the Moog. Getty
Luke
is
Dummy Sam.
Moog dummy synth. Um, and it's just awesome. It's an awesome album. I mean, the song "Farewell to Kings" is awesome. Xanadu is top tier Rush.
Oh my God, that song is so crazy.
That song is awesome, and "Close to the Heart" is probably one of their biggest hits. It's classic. I don't know if I like it as much as the Bubbles and the Shit Rockers version, or the version where Bubbles sings it, but it's pretty good. And I and Cygnus X1 Book One, The Voyage, that was called.
The Voyage. The
Yeah,
Voyage.
is awesome. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome song. Such a good song. But I mean, like as a song, is it like the best written song in the world? No. But you're listening to it because they're just going nuts and they have this weird, super, honestly, super nerdy voice in the beginning. And it just is awesome. And when Getty's bass comes in, it is just sends chills down your spine. It's so good.
Yeah.
Um, I think the reason why I can't put it above other ones is because, if I'm being honest, Madrigal is a skip.
Mhm.
Like me and Aiden were listening to this one in the car because I was still kind of like going through these, and he was like, "Yeah, just skip this one." I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I've heard this song album a million times now. By this point, we'll go ahead and skip this one and get the Cygnus X1." And
Yeah.
Cinderella Man is still good too, but I think just because Madrigal, see, I think they could have cut that one and it would have been a better album. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, I love it. It's near and dear to my heart. Xanadu is all time, or it's Farewell to Kings, which I don't want people to be upset by how low it is, but I still love it. Like,
I mean, you gotta put something there.
yeah,
Yeah. Uh, is that all you gotta say?
that's all I gotta say.
Cool. We're at 8.
Oh, one more thing. I think another reason why is this is going to sound super anal, but Alex's guitar tone, I think, was better on other albums. So that's why I'm also lowering it slightly. That's a nitpick, but we're down to the
All right,
nitty
man.
gritty here.
All right, all right, all right. Oh, and actually, that actually reminds me back to the debut album real quick. The snare drum on that album is atrocious. Sounds so terrible. I just want to
Okay,
bring that
I'll
up.
have to re-listen to that. I didn't notice that.
It's like wow, this is awful. But all right, sorry. Number 8. My number 8, and you're right. You're ruffling my feathers a little bit. I got Roll the Bones. I I really like that album. It was a 7 out of 10. Um, the song "Roll the Bones" goes just unbelievably hard. The the chorus is really good, and to your point, I agree. The rap part, I don't hate it. It's a little like weird. It's certainly a little weird for sure, but I really don't hate it. It's pretty experimental. This is how I wouldn't have minded the synth, the like Rush synth era to sound, because it definitely does take a back seat. But it's very like playful, adds a lot of character to the album. Um, I kind of like that they're on their experimental grind. I mean, not obviously not as much as like 2112 or something like that, but Where's My Thing I liked it. I thought that was a good instrumental track. Dreamline and Bravado are also really good songs as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, I like this album a lot. I think if somebody hadn't heard Roll the Bones before, I would definitely recommend they listen to it if they're a Rush fan. Um, so yeah, that's why I got number 8, 7 out of 10, Roll the Bones.
All right. Number 7 for me is Fly By Night, which I got at 9 out of 10. And this is the first one with a man named Neil Peart, who is an awesome drummer, one of the best of all to ever do it, especially in the rock
Yeah.
genre. Like, Jesus.
He's
He is like the most melodic drummer I've ever heard. Like,
I agree.
what I mean by that is like, well, I don't know how to explain to you, because you're a drummer, but every fill, you just know the fills. They're meticulously put there. Maybe it wasn't on purpose, but they're just so memorable. And to me, this is like huge step up from the first album, which I like. But they just instantly, you can tell that they're so much better with Anthem. With you can tell they're just their playing on this album is just ferocious. They're playing on this album like the rent is due. I mean, seriously, like, oh my god, such a good album. Nine out of 10, like I said. I also think this is Neil Peart's best drumming album in my opinion.
Hey,
Because
Liam, hold on. Give me a second. My AirPods just died.
okay, I can pause it. All right, so yeah, but Fly By Night, man. Like some of the songs on here, like Best I Can. What's that one called? Beneath, Between, and Behind are
Oh yeah.
like not too far off from what they were doing on their first album, but just like such a huge step above in the same way. Like
Mhm.
they just sound like a fiery rock band just wanting to blow your socks off. Obviously, Fly By Night, the classic, and I love In the End. But what we really need to be talking about here is By Tor and the Snow Dog. I don't know what the hell
Yeah.
that means, but that is like top five Rush songs ever. Like, oh my god,
Oh,
the
easily.
the first time they did like a really long, like prog ish kind of thing. Still definitely hard rock, but his drumming on that is insane. The whole thing is awesome. This okay. Here's let me tell you a story that'll make you realize how awesome this song is. My younger brother had this song playing in a car once, and he told me he was air drumming so hard that the vape he had, he lost his vape because he was air drumming to the song so hard. Which
That's sick.
is a yeah. Which by the way, Rush best air drumming band ever.
Easily. Easily.
Not even close. So yeah, I mean, I
I'd say
love Fly
easily,
By
yeah.
Night. This one kind of went up a step for me because I mean, I like the early period, but I prefer the that run I was talking about before. But it's just so damn good, dude. I mean, I'm not as crazy about Rivendell as some other people are, and
Hmm.
Making Memories is fine. Got a cool slide guitar solo, which he didn't really do that a whole lot afterwards, if at all. And I just like it a lot. It's my number
Yeah.
seven, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, um, Liam, my number seven, and this should be the last one where we really disagreed, is Clockwork Angels. I loved Clockwork Angels. Um, First of all, let me get this out of the way. The Garden, I think you can make an argument. Like you said, I know it's been said a lot, but I think you can make an argument that that is the best Swan song ever. I think that is such a good way to end a career. Um, it is a interesting concept album. Definitely super ambitious. Like you said, it might be the only one that they did that was like the entire album was like of one concept. Um, Caravan goes hard. Headlong Flight goes hard. Anarchist goes insanely hard. Um, yeah, I think I gave this a 8 out of 10. So it's kind of getting nitty gritty at this point. The main like drawbacks is the production was good, but not like the best I've ever heard in my life. Getty's voice or vocals aren't insane. Like they're kind of a lot to be desired there. Still not bad, but definitely not as good as he had been, at least in my opinion. But I think you're going to be hard pressed to find a better like closing album for such a career like they had. This was such a good way to close this album. And like you said, with the going back to the vocals, there definitely was a lot of like pitch correction and stuff on there. Just because if you listen to R40, which was only 2 years after this came out, this is, R40 was essentially the Clockwork Angels tour. Um, he sounds rough. He does not sound good at
Yeah,
all.
I heard some stuff
But
on there the other day, and I agree.
yeah, yeah, they definitely have a lot of pitch crashing and stuff going on. But still, I think it's a really good album. Really, really, really good final album. I got it 8 out of 10. Number seven, Clockwork Angels.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like for 40 years into their career, like, come on, like they I think, through this series, we'll be hard pressed to find somebody who's had a career this long that was able to do something that good that late in their career. I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I still like it a lot. Like I said, it could probably go up in the future. But yeah. So moving on to my number six. And Jack, I gotta say, I'm so happy you had it as high as you did. I got Power Windows. And this one, first time I heard it, it was a lot lower. I was listening to it in the gym and I was not vibing to it at all. And I liked this album before, and I was like, oh, I guess this one fell off for me. But the other night, I had this playing. It was late at night, the sun was going down, and for a second there, I was like, is this my number one? And then I was like,
Wow.
okay, let's not get crazy here. But it's a 9 out of 10. And to your point, it is their most like they of the synth era, they went all in. They had a new producer and that Getty was playing all sorts of synths, and it sounds. This to me is the last time they were truly a progressive rock band because this is progressive, not in the same way as Hemispheres, but for them to do this was so honestly crazy. And I don't really think there's a bad song on this album. The layering is awesome. Um, Big Money, really cool opener. But to me, where this album really shines is Manhattan Project, which to your point, his drum part on that is amazing. And no, you don't
Mhm.
notice it right away. But this album, I really feel like is worth listening to over and over again, and it just grows on you over time because of how many parts there are in it that you don't notice maybe at first. And also just the writing is so good. Catchy hooks everywhere. His voice sounds awesome. Lifeson is playing great solos and little textural stuff. And I honestly, in my opinion, this is Getty's best bass album. I think his bass lines are so I like technical for what's going on. They're crazy bass lines. So I was a little surprised to hear that from you. But yeah, Middletown Dreams, Emotion Detector is great. Mystic
Mhm.
Rhythms. It's all the songs are really good. Marathon, and I think I said this in the Taylor Swift video. I don't really like when songs modulate the key and the chorus up. I feel like it's like just like a cheap way to like bring drama to the song. But that song that they do it, that chorus to Marathon, it almost sounds like it would be like a Christmas song or something.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you know what I mean, but it just is so huge. This album, honestly, to me, sounds really good. And I like if someone were to watch this video, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, Liam, he's a big '80s guy." I'm honestly, and I think I've said this to you. I'm honestly really not. I don't really like
Mhm.
'80s production at all. But to me, this does not sound like any other Rush album, and it doesn't sound like any other band or artist I've ever heard either. It's very
Yeah.
unique to them, and I think it's like just such a cool little detour in their catalog. So yeah, I agree with you. If someone's like not familiar with this album, check it out. I mean, and give it a fair shot of like, okay, it's not gonna sound like their '70s or early '80s stuff. It's way different, but it's amazing. So there's five I like more, but this really, I mean, I could honestly put this one higher if I didn't
Hmm.
have the history I did with my top five. So
Right.
yeah, Power Windows number
All right.
six.
Cool. All right. Well, we almost talked about the same album 2 times in a row, but at my number six, we got Fly By Night. Uh, so just a little bit higher. 8 out of 10. I gave it. Uh, New Kid on the Block. Neil Peart comes. This crazy Canadian kid. Neil Peart's on this album. Um, I mean, what more can really be said than what you said? By Torn the Snow Dog, absolutely insane song. I think Fly By Night's also a really good title track uh, on it. Kind of surprised, honestly, that that didn't really get more popular than it did, especially for that time, because it still had like remnants of like the debut. Um, that's why I thought In the End was on that album for a second, because it sounds like a song that could be. Same with even Fly By Night, I'd say, but definitely different enough to warrant, being on a new album. But yeah, I mean, the way Neil Peart's drumming is just absolutely fucking cracked on this album. He really came out of the gate swinging um, with this album, especially in By Tour and the Snow Dog. Um, it kind of I honestly was expecting to put it higher than I did, but there are some songs that just kind of I guess skip are like skips for me. But I think the production is a way huge step up from the first album. Obviously, again, songs like "By Torn the Snow Dog" and it's really just "By Torn the Snow Dog" are just absolutely fucking knocked it out of the park. So got it at 8 out of 10. Number six, Fly By Night.
Okay, my number five, I have 2112. This is teetering on the brink of a 10, but it's just not. It's a nine,
Hmm.
but I love this
Yeah,
album. It features my favorite Rush song, 2112.
that's fair. That's
I mean,
fair
I remember
choice.
the first time I had moving pictures, like I said, and then I heard that song, and I was like, what the hell? Like, so crazy. Every part is awesome. Even the ending is just so good, man. Like that's one of the few songs that the ending gives me chills, which might sound super
Yeah.
stupid, but it's just because
No,
it's like
yeah.
it goes on for 20 minutes and you know, like, and I do like prog rock, but I'm not like as big on it as like some guys are. But I like it. But that song for them to just write that after doing like something like Fountain of Lamneth or Lament, I forget what it's called, but
I think Lamb Nymph,
which in
but
my
whatever.
in my opinion, very disjointed, cool parts, like I said. But this one, they just, and also talk about a good story behind the album. If you ever watched the Rush documentary, which I'm sure you have, it's like they were like after Caress of Steel, the label was like, "This did horribly. You guys have one more shot and you're done." So they could have made another Fly By Night, and given that it was the '70s, probably done well. But they were like, "No, we're gonna do what we want to do, and this might be our last album. So let's do what we want." And they did 2112, which such the guitar playing on it, the bass, everything, Getty's vocals. See, this to me is when I'm like, okay, I can get why you might not like Getty's vocals. They're very screechy, and he's talking about whatever the hell. Like, and the topic of the song isn't even that good. It's about like an alien finding a guitar, which is like super
Yeah.
stupid, honestly. But like, it works. And but the thing is, that's only one part of the album, which I think is what people forget is that there's the whole backside which features Passage to Bangkok, which kills. It's a song about traveling the world smoking weed around the world. I mean, like, come on,
That's badass.
that's
That's
badass.
badass.
And I will say the middle part, I could take or leave. I don't dislike any of it, but I don't love Tears, Twilight Zone, Lessons is pretty cool, but um, Something for Nothing is awesome, and it's even better on All the World's a Stage. I love that song. So good. So yeah, that's my number five.
Awesome. All right. Well, my number five, I got Crest of Steel again at 8 out of 10. I really do think that this album's extremely underrated. I think the fact that some people would have this as their least favorite album is just crazy to me. I do understand. Um, if you hear "I Think I'm Going Bald," why that song is not the best song in the world. I understand that, but like you said, to your point, it's got freaking the Necromancer and the Fountain of Limneth. Like those songs go so unbelievably hard to me. It's the the first time that they ever really uh um what's the word, experimented with those super long form songs with multiple parts and basically the entire side of an album's two songs. Like that's insane. But dude, it just works. Like I think it's so like I'm just a sucker for that type of song and that type of music. So pretty much from here on out, it's going to be their like epics era because I love those songs. I love those long form songs that really tell a story. Um, so I think, like you said, where it loses major points is I think I'm going bald. I really like Lakeside Park. It might just be nostalgia. My dad would always play that song when I was younger. Um, I like Lakeside Park. I think Bastille Day is kind of like I could take it or leave it. I'm not really too crazy on that, but so that's kind of where it loses points a little bit. Um, but I think the Necromancer and Fountain of Limneth just raise this album up so much. That's a top five album for me. So I got number five, 8 out of 10.
Hey, man. Well, I do agree that people who say it's the worst, that's just, I, that's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, okay. So my top four now. These are the big boys. These were hard to place, but I'm gonna put this one at number four, and it's a 10 out of 10. So they have four perfect albums to me, and that's
Mm.
Permanent Waves. And to be honest with you, I I understand what you're saying. Like it's kind of short. It's their shortest album, but God, they see. I don't think that. I think they're still in the prog era here, kind of. Um, they're just mixing it with a little more new wave sounds. I would say describe it as, which is cool, and no one was really doing that. You had like this band that was could fit in with you know the Police, for example, and bands like that, but still could hang. The musicianship was top tier, and you know, all you need to do is listen to a song like Free Will, which is a perfect song. Great bass, great drums, great guitar, great lyrics, great melody. Spirit of Radio is a classic. The reggae part, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
That's just such a classic song, and I love Entre Nous. That's one of my all-time favorite Rush songs. Similarly, I love Different Strings as well. Great ballad. I think very mature songwriting from them at that point in their career. And I love Natural Science. I think that's the last time they really wrote a song like that, and it just kills. The drums, the riff, the sound effects, just crazy. The way it builds, and the different parts, just they were so. To your point, they were the kings of writing these long songs. Like they were just so multi-part, and they don't feel long. Is the thing they really don't
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's just so perfectly crafted. Um, I could agree with you on Jacob's Ladder. I've never been crazy about that one, but I still like it. I still like it. Just my least favorite on the album. So Permanent Waves, at a certain time, could have been my number one, but I wasn't feeling that this time around. So yeah,
Yeah. That's fair. All right. So yeah, same, similar to you. My top four are pretty big boys. I only have one 10 out of 10. It's my number one. I'll give a little spoiler there. But my number four is an 8.5 out of 10. It's Farewell to Kings. Um, I think this is a really good, a really just good album, pretty much from start to finish. Had their biggest hit up to that point, I think, worldwide and Closer to the Heart. I think we forget, us Americans forget that Closer to the Heart was a huge hit in Europe. I think it was like number four when it came out. It was like
wow,
massive over there. Yeah,
I
I
didn't
could
know
be
that.
wrong, but I could be wrong, but I think in England it was number four. It was huge. And if you listen to Exit Stage Left, I think they have the entire album recorded at Massey Hall or something. But the Closer to the Heart is in England, and then when they start playing to it, the crowd just goes insane. Um, Cygnus X1, Book One, is like you said to your point, absolutely just epic as hell. There are the reason it's not a little higher is because of songs like pretty much just Madrigal. I'm like, I mean, I don't hate it. I really don't hate it at all.
Ah,
But it's definitely not, one of the best songs on there. Rivendell is kind of the same way, um, where it's like, it's not a bad song, but it's pretty good. But I think I might be able to say their most underrated song is Xanadu. I think Xanadu you can make an argument it's their best song. The intro like guitar part, like when it's just like and it's just the cymbals hitting on each bar is so badass. It is so insane. That song makes me feel like such a fucking badass. Um, but yeah, I think that I mean, you might be able to make an argument that this is the most underrated. That's actually not true at all. No, I won't say that. But yeah, I think that you could say that this is your number one. This is actually my first favorite Rush album, and you can make an argument, or you could say that this is your first, or this is your favorite Rush album. And I would not have a problem with that at all.
no, me neither.
But yeah, but there are three that I like a little bit better. So kept it at number four, 8.5 out of 10. Fell with the Kings.
See, I'm getting nervous here, man, because we could have the same top two.
I hope we do. Well, oh yeah, yeah, we could,
Well,
we
let
could.
me let me go to my number three then, which I guess kind of spoils it, is Signals, which I also have 10 out of 10. And yeah, I just love this album. I don't think there's a bad song on it. To your point, Digital Man is crazy and awesome. I love Subdivisions, especially as an opener. And this is their first album where is I guess of their synth period. Although I will say I do think some people definitely lump this with the later stuff, but I think a lot of people still is very beloved. I mean, so are the other 80s ones, but I think general consensus from your average fan are still going to put this one up there. Um, New World Man is actually, from what I understand, is their highest charting song ever, which is kind of weird, but that's a great one too. Um, the musicianship is just still that. See, they turn the synths up, but it really is not, in my opinion, that far off from Moving Pictures and sound. I mean, you have Analog Kid, which still rips, and the synth, the bridge of that where the synths really cut in is amazing. I love Chemistry. That's an awesome song. Um, you know, the last two songs, Losing It is amazing, and the violin part, I don't know who that was, but he killed it. And I honestly think Countdown, whatever the hell they're singing about, the moon landing or whatever the hell, it just works. I'm like, yeah, it's cool. I like it. So I don't have really enough good things to say about this one. I mean, I like it a lot. I always will. Signals, number three, 10 out of 10.
Awesome. Lamb, I do apologize, but I do not think that we're gonna have. I think this might be your number one. If I was gonna guess, this is your number one, but my number three. Nine out of 10 is Moving Pictures. I this album is definitely deserving of their most commercially successful album. This album fucks. Um, Tom Sawyer, Limelight, Red Barchetta, and YYZ. Those are the most famous songs of this album, and oh my god, like I don't know if I could name a better four songs on a single album. Um, Tom Sawyer obviously has I think the thing that this album really as a whole did that I really appreciate is they made popular music, and I'm not saying they're the only people to do this, but they made popular music really, really good. Like like Tom Sawyer is an insanely good song. Like I'm even talking about like technically. YYZ is a masterclass, I think, in songwriting. I think there's one song that I'll get to later that's a little better. But I would give this the second best instrumental that Rush has, and that's not a crazy that's a pretty good title. They have a lot of instrumentals. Red Barchetta, when I first heard it, I didn't initially like it, but it grew on me a lot as I grew up. Um, I think it's an interesting song about a gleaming alloy air car that's uh, shooting towards him 2 lanes wide. Interesting song topic to write a song about. But it loses me in the last half. I won't lie. Camera Eye, Witch Hunt. I'm really don't really care about those songs too much. Um, but from songwriting, production, lyrically, this album is absolutely amazing. If you were to have this at number one, this is an example of their most popular album. You could say is their best, and I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with it. Um, it's just a bit of a mixed bag for me, and the back half is a little bit too down low for me to put it at number two or even number one. But yeah, Moving Pictures number three.
All right, well, see, this is frustrating. Okay, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But am I on my number two now? Yeah.
Yeah.
My number two is Hemispheres. And here's the thing, Jack. This was my number one initially. And then when I re-listened to him, I was like, I don't think I can put it there. And I think the reason why I can't put it, oh, let's go to the negatives first, which really there are none, is that this is in every sense of the word a prog album, right? It's
Oh
only
yeah.
4 songs, but it's still a full album length, which I think half the album being instrumental is maybe why I can't put it at number one compared to the other one. And also, I'll get to the other one later, but there's not a bad moment on this album, really. And I think it's cool as hell that it's only 4 songs. Um, I think, as much as I do love 2112, I think the song Hemispheres is their best written long song. Just amazing. And I still don't quite understand what the hell he's talking about in that, but I don't really care because it's so good.
Yeah.
Just a masterclass. It's cool that they continued the whole Cygnus thing. La Via Strangiato is it's him. I mean, you're hard pressed to find a better instrumental song than that. I mean, really, I mean, let's be real. Great guitar playing from Lifeson, great guitar sounds. He's really using that chorus pedal a lot here on this
Hmm.
album. Is when he starts kind of going for that sound more. Always loved the trees. Now that is a song with lyrics I can get behind.
Oh yeah.
Now, and I think the Black Sheep of the album, Circumstances, is one of my favorite Rush songs. So there's not a bad moment. I'm so glad that they didn't keep trying to remake this one because I think that's also what makes this one so special. Is like, how much further were they going to take this sound realistically? Now,
Yeah.
I don't know that they could have. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess that's all I have to say about it. It's just an amazing album. It's one of the best prog albums ever made. It's certainly up there. I mean, I don't really know what I'd put above it. Maybe a Pink
Yeah.
Floyd album, but it's still so much different than
I
that.
mean,
It's so much more. And I think what made them, not to cut you off, but I think what made them separate from the Yeses and the Genesises and the, Gentle Giants is like, I think for me, and probably for you too, is like, I wasn't like a prog guy. Like that, I didn't really get into Yes and all those bands until later on in my life. I was a rock and
mhm.
roll guy. And I think that's always what Rush were first and foremost. And that's what made their music so interesting is it wasn't all just show, it was a lot of attitude as well. And that's what makes it work so well. That's all I got to say in my number two hemispheres.
All right. That's very, very well put. My number two, 9 out of 10. And very easily could have flipped this in moving pictures, like very easily, is 2112. Um, I think it's got the same problems as moving pictures, where it's a little like the front half is really good, like really good, and the back half it kind of loses me a little bit. But I think the main difference that made me decide to flip them is really because of how good of a song 2112 is. 2112 is such a good song. Um, I think Passage to Bangkok, I'm kind of like, I mean, again, I could take it or leave it. I'm not necessarily too crazy about it. Something for Nothing is like, is that guy. Um, the Middle, like you said, kind of. I like Tears though. I think Tears is a good song. But
It is.
yeah, the main thing with me is the song 2112 is just so out of this world. To me, I think that especially if I had been alive when this album came out, well, I just, oh my God, I would have lost my shit if I heard that. Um, I think the story, even like getting behind the lore of it. I don't know if I ever told you this, but the story is inspired by Anthem by Ayn Rand. That's why they have a
Oh
song
yeah,
called
yeah.
Anthem. And I
Okay.
read the book. I got out and I went to a library and I rented Anthem by Ayn Rand because of this at like 16. Like that is a feat, dude. Getting
Yeah,
a
to make a
16-year-old
16
boy
year old
to read.
in the 2010s to read.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
crazy. Um, but no, yeah, I think that this is just a masterclass in progressive music, progressive rock. I don't think I, I think the only like I don't know. Like there's not a single song that I like better in the progressive rock genre, I think, than 2112. I think you can totally make that argument.
I would probably agree
But
with that as well.
yeah, but it's just it's just the back half kind of drags it down a little bit. But it's still a number two out of 19 albums, so it's not bad at all. But I just couldn't give it a 10 out of 10. I wanted to, but I couldn't do it.
That's how I
So I
felt.
have it at number two. Yeah, I have it at
Yeah,
number two. All right,
yeah,
Liam,
and
let's get
also
into it.
like want to shout out like the progressive metal genre. Like
Oh, true, true.
like that. It started there, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like
100%.
all those bands, there's not that's not even a genre unless that song comes out. Which
You're right.
at at a certain point you could say, well, who really cares? But
True.
also, like it's an impressive
True.
feat.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's just get into it. It was originally my number two. I'm not gonna lie, this is the first album I ever heard by them. Sure, I have the longest history with it. But it's moving pictures. It's the obvious one. I truly do think not only my favorite, I think it's their best one. And it is certainly a tale of two halves. You had side A and side B, right? And side A is literally the most perfect album side of all time, I would argue. I I mean, what? No, there's literally nothing better than those four in a row. Not Zeppelin 4, not
hmm
the Kendrick Lamar one I gave a 10 to. Like, I'm not saying I like it more than those other ones, but it's perfect. Like, every one of those songs is in their like top 10 best songs. Like, Limelight is such a perfect, catchy song. Great lyrics, great solo from Lifeson. Just an amazing song. Um, I'm with you. Red Barchetta, the older you get, the better that song is because it's not as immediate as the other ones. Um, YYZ, I think, is their best instrumental personally because I think it's the most cleverly written one. Tom Sawyer is so classic, and Tom Sawyer has made rock. See, unlike a lot of other bands from this era, whose throughout time their stock has dropped.
hmm
Rush in their stock keeps going up with people. Like people did not like Rush when they were first coming out. The critics hated them. And now you
Oh
got
yeah.
Tom Sawyer. It's always in movies. They're not. I would even argue they're not even a nerd band anymore. Like people say they are. Like they're a cool band now. Like consent. I mean, I always thought they were, but they have
Yeah.
become a cool band.
That's
Um,
what Dave Grohl said at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he inducted him. It's like that's the
really,
biggest mystery of he's like that's the biggest mystery of rock and roll is when did Rush become cool?
yeah. Well, and then the second half, the Camera Eye is the worst song in the album, but I still like it a good bit. But I love Witch Hunt. I think that's awesome, awesome guitar part. It's the first of that whole Fear series they have, which is honestly just nonsense because there's no point in that. But and then Vital Signs is just like a really good album closer. It's simple to the point. Interestingly, he's definitely using like an electronic drum kit in the first half,
Yeah.
Like, and then he goes to the full kit, which was an interesting choice. But I mean, I did not listen to the first half of that album for years. Like after Limelight, I was like, there's an 11-minute song. Like, why? What's the point? But I think what's made this album so enjoyable for me is like having that second half of the songs that I think are really solid that I didn't know for years, and that just makes the replay value really high on this one for me. So on to your number one, buddy.
All right. So my number one, perfect album, 10 out of 10, Hemispheres. Uh, I think, like to your point, this album is only 4 songs long, but I don't care. I think that I kind of like that actually. I think that that adds to it. Um, Circumstances is a really, really cool song. Well, no, let's go this way. Okay. So that opens up with Cygnus X1 Book 2, uh, Hemispheres, which I think is the better Cygnus X1. Not to say that the one on Farewell to Kings is bad. I really do like that album closed. Farewell to Kings closed with it, and then you open up with Cygnus X1 Book 2. I really like that. But I think that this song is better than that song. I think the ending part where he says, "I have memory and awareness, but I have no shape or form." That part is really really cool. Um, the entire part where like they make him a god. Dude, it's just like the lore of it is so cool, dude. I think that I'm just such a sucker for those type of songs. And then the trees comes out, and like you said, that's a it's a song that talks about racism but using trees. I mean, what are we talking about here? That's so cool.
It's great.
That's so dope. And you get to circumstances. It has a little French in it. Um, ain't nothing, but that when that song came out, I was kind of like, do I put this below 2112? Do I put this below Moving Pictures? I I might. I was thinking about it, and then that song ended, and then La Via Strangiato started, and literally as soon as the first guitar, like as soon as that guitar started playing, I was like, nah, this is number one. Like it's just like this is number one. Um, I think that there truly is not like this is the definition of a perfect album or a 10 out of 10 album, I should say. No skips. La Via Strangiato, I think, is truly a masterclass in songwriting, especially instrumental songwriting. I think that that song tells a story without using any words, which is absolutely insane. Obviously, there are other instrumental songs that do that, but I think that this one does the best job of it. You can also say that this is the hardest Rush on to play on the drums, at least. I think Neil Peart would also agree with that if he was still here with us. But there's a famous story about they tried to record this all in one take, and they were up for 3 days straight trying to do it, and they couldn't do it.
Wow.
So they recorded it in a few different parts. So I think the best song is Livia Strangiato on this song, or I mean on this album. I really think that this is just a really really good like blend of storytelling and storytelling and technical skill, and there's even I mean a little bit of commercial uh what's the word I'm looking for, commercial, like I guess success in there. um I just think that this is the best Rush album. This is the quintessential 10 out of 10. I might go as far and say that this is my favorite album we have reviewed on this series. I love this album.
Wow.
um I don't know. Good Kid, Mad City was really good as well, but I absolutely love this album, uh, and I don't see this changing. I don't see this being anywhere from number one in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. I mean, I love that album. I would say it was 10 out of 10. And Jack, I'm just going to say it. Taylor Swift, she's never doing the drums in
Yeah,
2112 or La Via
yeah,
Strangiato. She could never make a song like that.
yeah. That's my biggest thing about Taylor Swift is like you hear something like Circumstances. You hear Getty Lee say, Plume c'est son plus c'est la même chose.
She's not doing that.
Taylor Swift's not doing that. She's just
She
not
doesn't
doing
know
that. I mean,
French. Rush know
yeah,
French. Taylor Swift could not sing in French.
and she tries so hard to be like, oh, I'm progressive. I'm a progressive rock metal artist.
Yeah,
Like, no, you're
and
not.
she does
Okay.
not have the lyrics even. Yeah, blah blah blah. Oh, her lyrics are so good.
No,
No, none of her lyrics even touch Red Barchetta.
not even done. Not even close. Again, shifting shafts of shining weave the fabric of their dreams. Yeah. Good luck. Good
Good
luck
luck.
coming up
Have
with
fun,
that.
Jack.
Yeah.
I am a bit. First of all, did you? I had a great time doing this. The whole leading up to it, it was
I
like
had a good time.
revisiting an old friend.
It was. That's a good way to put it. It was. It made me think like, wow, I'm 17 years old again. I just got my license. How exciting.
Yeah, but I was, of your all your choices, the only one that made me go, "What the hell?" was Grace Under Pressure, just because it
Yeah.
was last. But honestly, I'm pretty, we were very different in spots, I would say, but I think we
Hmm.
both shared that, that how good these guys were throughout, consistently throughout their career.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
I'm honestly really happy that you came around to Power Windows because that
I
one is
I, I like that
is
album.
very polarizing, but I really feel like because they went all in on it,
Hmm.
it made it work so well.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of why I liked it. Again, it's like that reverse bell curve thing where it's like if you do something like so not even so bad it's good, but like too much. I just I don't know. I unironically really enjoyed it.
I think the more you come back to that album in the future, the more you will like it too. Because that's at least how it is for me. But
Yeah, I definitely am going to listen to that one again in the future, but I'm going to take a little bit of a rush break for now because this was a lot of music.
yeah, I mean, I honestly I like Rush more now after doing this.
Oh, I do too, for sure. I
Like
definitely respect
it,
them more.
in my opinion, I'm not even just saying in my opinion. I think outside of the Beatles, I now think the three greatest rock bands are the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, and Rush. Like I think
Mhm.
Rush are that good. Like
Yeah, I think like technically, like performance wise, I think you could put them definitely above. I mean, I'd probably put them number one.
yeah, but even outside that, like the writing, the
Yeah.
honestly, like there's something about their music that is like I think even on the later stuff, there's like it's like almost like personable. I would
Hmm.
say, like more
Yeah, I could
so
agree
than
with
like
that.
a Led Zeppelin, who we both love, and I would, you know, I'm not saying I like them more than them even, but like they're like these rock gods. Like Rush are like these three Canadian guys who made an
They're just three
awesome
dudes.
band.
They're just
Yeah,
guys being dudes.
like the video of them all going out to dinner together is classic. You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah.
Like I seriously do like if I ever have a kid, like and like I'm gonna like showing him all the classic music, showing the Beatles, Hendrix, Miles Davis, Bob Dylan, all those type of guys that are like 20th century major influential figures. I would also like put Rush in there. Like that's how much I like
And
Rush.
and you know what? What else is there to be said after that, huh, Liam? They
Yeah,
are a great band. I really
they
do.
really are. They transcend
Yeah.
their genre. They're great. But
And
yeah,
rest in peace, both John Rutsey
yeah,
and Professor
that's
Neil Peart.
John Rutsey was an amazing drummer too. I liked his drumming a lot, and Neil Peart
I
obviously.
did too. I
Rest
like
in
Neil Pearce
peace.
more.
So let's cut down to the nitty gritty, Jack.
Hmm.
We're doing Ween next, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, we're doing Ween next.
We're doing Ween next, so that'll be an interesting one. But I'm glad this was probably the most fun I had doing one of these so far because of how much depth there was. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I had a good time as well.
yeah. But yeah, Ween, an old favorite of Jack's. I've seen him live.
I've seen him too. My favorite live show.
Yeah, so that'll be tune in next time for that. Jackie, anything you want to plug?
Nope. Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving, and I guess tune in next time for
Yeah.
Two Blokes.
Yeah. All right.